So if the alarm rings, that is genuine. So please head out of the main door through which you came and assemble on the paved area by the cathedral. And toilets, I think you will know, are just out here and down the steps on the left there for gentlemen, and on the right for ladies. Apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, please?
None, Chair.
Oh, that's absolutely great. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? I see no hands. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Does anyone wish to amend, to amend the minutes of the previous meeting, or are you happy with them as we have them in front of us? No, everyone's happy. Then I will sign those. Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Fabian. Okay, action sheet has nothing on it. And appeals. Would you like, Jonathan, to go through the appeals, and would councillors like to ask any questions after Jonathan has to elucidate any particular concerns or whatever, or matters of interest? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. There was an appeal in particular that I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention, which is in the list of appeals lodged under the written representations list. It's number 51 there, an appeal that relates to a proposal within the Lawrence Hill ward. This is the site known as land adjacent to a waste transfer station on Days Road. I just wanted to highlight this one because it is an appeal against conditions that were imposed on an application for advertisement consent, which was a decision by the DCB committee at its meeting in November last year. There are a number of conditions that are being appealed against. Officers have made representations to the inspector and have provided information in relation to the decision that was taken. So I just wanted to highlight that one. When we receive the decision on that, I'd be happy to provide an update on that one. So,
thank you. And obviously, the decision on that will be some learning for us as councillors, because it was our decision that we made. I noticed that by and large we're doing pretty well on appeal outcomes. Maybe not so much the householder stuff, a little bit, but then that would be more challenging, wouldn't it? Perhaps more open to interpretation, perhaps. And is that your reading of?
Yeah, I think so. As ever, there's really kind of a mixed bag there. I think overall, there are a number there that have been dismissed, and I think your observation is correct that particularly in relation to householders, there are some there that have been allowed that we will look at and identify any kind of learning from.
Thanks. Councillor Pulteney?
Thanks, Chair. Just two quick things. Once, in relation to the specific case that you wanted to highlight, obviously very often there are conditions and there are conditions. I was wondering, the particular conditions appealed, are they ones that were specifically added by the committee? Were they ones that were added later under delegated powers in order to assuage committee concerns? Were they, I don't want to say standard conditions, because there's no such thing, but were they, would you characterise them for us?
So in terms of the conditions that have been appealed against, so there are some pre-commencement conditions that include matters relating to the construction management plan and the approval in principle process. So that's to do with the structures issue. We also had 3 post-occupation management conditions that related to monitoring, access and maintenance, and also a 6-month lighting report. So a monitoring report, and really I think all those we consider to be sort of reasonable and necessary given the proposal, and we will be making representations to that effect.
Thanks. And the other was just to note I may be misreading it, that there seems to be quite a lot that have been listed for formal appeal for some time now, as in they've appealed on the appeared on the appeal sheet quite a few times. I was just wondering, is there any sense that possibly the inspectors are experiencing similar capacity issues to other bits of sort of government, local government? Are they falling behind, perhaps?
I must say I don't have their sort of latest sort of performance data sort of to hand. I know that they do publish statistics there. I think sort of anecdotally we have observed kind of some delays with some appeals, but like I say, sort of the data is out there. I know they do publish it and sort of report on that.
Given that they're examining our local plan, it might be improper to comment at the moment. So, enforcement actions. Anything that you want to highlight there?
No, really. No, there aren't any notices that are that appear on the agenda papers, and we have just provided an update though, just in terms of the team's sort of overall work.
Yep. Any questions? Anyone? All happy with that? Good. Thank you. In which case, we then move on to our one and only application, 2628 Walsingham Road, Montpelier. And we have public forum now at the beginning of each application, which in this case is only one. And today, Mr. Taverner, is that correct? Would you have a minute or two to speak? I don't think we'll pin you down to whatever thing, as we're not exactly packed out today, so you're very welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, my name is James Taverner of AGM, and I'm the planning agent speaking in support of this application to allow up to 60 children to attend the nursery at 26 to 28 Walsingham Road. The nursery has been operating successfully since 1999, and an enforcement letter was issued to my client regarding a breach of condition and the number of children attending. The nursery complied with the council's request to regularise operations and submit this application. The increase in numbers attending the nursery has been in place for some time without significant complaints and helps address the shortage of childcare in the city. Bristol's core strategy policies highlight the importance of accessible community infrastructure, and many nurseries in the area are oversubscribed. Reducing numbers at this site would impact working families and put further strain on local facilities. The council's highway and pollution control teams have raised no objections, and there is strong community support with 56 positive comments. I urge you to approve this application in line with officers' recommendations, ensuring the continued success of this vital community facility. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Over to the presentation now. Thank you.
So the application relates to a children's nursery in the Bishopston ward of the city. The application is a Section 73 application to vary a restrictive condition attached to the operating consent to allow uplift in attendance from 45 to 60 children. It's understood that the nursery has been operating with 60 children in attendance for over 5 years. The application is before members because of the level of local objections and the fact that there was previous enforcement complaint. The officer recommendation is to approve the application subject to conditions. So this is a photograph of the nursery frontage. The application has been publicised by way of 2 neighbour notification exercises, a total of 27 objections and 56 comments in support of the additional numbers have been received. Objectors are primarily concerned about additional noise and disturbance from children at the site and at drop-off pick-up times, also the impact on traffic and on-street parking availability. The comments in support are primarily from users of the nursery. They emphasise the convenience and quality of the nursery and the availability of nursery places, enabling parents to continue in employment. Internal consultees, pollution control and TDM have not objected. They've sought mitigations, including a noise management plan, and replacement of the 2 off-street parking spaces on the frontage with storage for refuse cycles and buggies. These mitigations are considered appropriate and are recommended secured by way of conditions. It's that one. So officers consider the regularisation of the numbers in attendance cap. Sorry. Right. Is that better? Sorry. Okay, so the key issues. Officers consider the regularisation of the numbers in attendance capped at 60 to be policy compliant, reasonable, and would not result in unacceptable harm to amenity. The recommendation is for a conditional approval as set out in the report. It's important to note that there's no change to restrictions on the hours of operation of the nursery, the hours of use of the garden, or the amount of children using the garden at any one time, which remain in line with the original consent. So the officer recommendation is to approve subject to conditions in line with the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay, just a quickie. So it's already had 60 children there for some time. So there's no actual, so if we give permission, it's not actually going to change the situation, just going to regularise it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me. Councillor Pulteney.
Yeah, it was just in relation to the objections. If you look up the application on the portal, it looks like there are quite a lot more objections than are listed. I'd appreciate that it may have been that the scheme obviously has changed since it was first applied for in 2023.
Yeah.
But equally, almost all of the statements in support seem to emerge from the very start of that period, as in from sort of summer of 2023. I was just wondering what we've counted and what we haven't in terms of the number of objections and supporters.
I've gone by the amount of consultation responses as recorded in our system. So I'm aware that the objections that came in following the latest round of consultation were 14 or 15. And the support comments, we didn't receive any in the latest round of consultation, but they're there on the record and, like I say, relate or have come in predominantly from users of the nursery.
The number of comments is what triggers or doesn't trigger a committee hearing for something. What matters is not the number, it's the issues which are raised, whether they're material or not. Anybody else? Lisa.
I just wanted to make sure that Ofsted are aware, and if they are aware, will they be making a look at the nursery? You know,
Is that a planning issue? Would you?
Well, it is, because we're increasing the numbers from 45 to 60 and we're regularising it. Yeah, I know they're already there. I understand that. However, my concerns are the health and safety of the young people that are going to the nursery. My concerns are, is there definitely the ratio between staff and young people? And if we accept the regularisation of 60 young people at a nursery, where Ofsted are not involved and not looking at these health and safety issues, then I think we need to clarify that, because I don't want to say yes to something to then realise that actually Ofsted goes in there and say, this is really unsafe, mate.
Would you consider that a material planning consideration, Jonathan?
No, it wouldn't be. And actually, you know, that wouldn't be a matter, that would be relevant to the consideration of this application, which really just relates to the condition in terms of the number of children. So that would be a separate matter for for other authorities and other regimes to consider.
Thank you. It's very important we confine ourselves to material consideration, please. Councillor Portney.
Thanks. Speaking of which, again, just want to check I suppose, a point of legal clarification. So currently, the nursery is operating under one particular planning consent. This would regularise, and that planning consent limits them to 39 or 45. I just forget which one was.
It's 45.
45. So this would take it up to 60, but would also impose new conditions in respect of the noise management plan, suitable storage, all of the other stuff. Some of which will be permanent changes, some of which will be more operational from the looks of things. So would I be right in thinking that if they were then able to drop those numbers back down to 45, they would no longer have to comply with the sort of the more onerous elements, as in if they were... I was seeing a no from Pip, but I'm not quite sure why.
In respect to my area of transport, it would be road safety. Road safety is always the issue that we want to make right. So it doesn't, if they came as a brand new applicant to do a 45 nursery, that we would still have applied all the same. The reason I was not is that the answer is we would always, from a TDM point of view, always put the road safety. Even if it was for 6 children, we would still have to assess it for that, and that's what we did in this, and that's what the applicant then agreed to make the changes to do that. So I just want to make it clear that we would always, where children are involved and vehicles, we would always want to put those kind of conditions on.
It's a historic situation where those would not have been imposed in the past, which has now come for a consideration as a planning application. So
it sounds like, if I may, in respect of transport, it doesn't make any difference if it's 60 or 45. You have the same blanket approach to all of them. There's no proportionality in it at all. Is that right?
Obviously, the trips related do grow, but the mitigation required would be not very different. It'd be centimetres or something in terms of things. So what I'm saying is I would look at as rigorously for road safety concerns on a 45 or a 60. So if they reverted, all the things we've asked for would still count now because it was a retrofit application. So,
and I think that's referring to the things I meant to suggest would be permanent changes if they're actual changes to layout. I'm thinking of operational things like the way that they manage noise on the site. Because obviously 60 is an increase on 45. If the nursery was to, for example, gain a second site, or demand were to drop back down that they no longer needed to have 60 children on the site, and the use of the site. Apologies, Fabian, can I just try and get to the end, if I may? If the numbers were to drop back down to something possibly more manageable for a site of this size, the nursery would no longer be required to comply with those operational conditions, those post-commencement conditions, if you like, relating to noise. In other words, they could go back to an easier operating model if they could get the numbers back under control. Is that fair?
If they did that and they would be complying with the terms of their existing consent, that already has a number of restrictions. So these aren't additional restrictions. So things like the amount of children outside in the garden wouldn't change. The overall hours, the nursery would still have to comply with all of those that are their operational constraints.
So final thought on the matter then. So once we go up to 60, there's absolutely no incentive at all for the nursery to bring the numbers back down to something more manageable for the site.
I think it's unlikely they would, yeah.
not from a planning point of view anyway, but I think it's always true that when you trigger or you apply for planning permission now, you will always get a different requirements than you would have got 20, 30 years ago anyway, because standards have moved on. So it doesn't stand, it's not true that you could suddenly remove your safety things on the road or whatever, because actually, were you to build that nursery now, even with 45 children, those requirements would now be there because of increased standards for safety. And who's the next person? Anybody? Paula?
If you just help me to understand clearly the chronology of it, because a lot of the objections, certainly many of them that I've looked at, seem to be concerned about the growth of numbers of children to 60. But even back in 2023, when it was first addressed and the application was first put in, the numbers of children had already risen to 60, as I understand it. So a lot of those objections are misguided by thinking that going from 45 to 60, they're going to have more noise and more all those things. But in fact, they've been living with it for years.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And certainly a lot of the more recent complaints or the more recent representations when we went back out to public consultation were more concerned. I think it was interpreted that there was an uplift of an additional 60 over how they're operating at the moment, which isn't the case.
Do we have any further questions? If not, I will move to discussion. Would anyone like to open our discussion? Councillor Breckles?
Yeah, I mean, if this was in many other parts of the city, it wouldn't have come to committee. And I do find that frustrating. As far as I'm concerned, it's already got 60 kids in there. It's up to 60, so the numbers may go up, may go down a bit some years. And I just think, the officer recommendation is fairly straightforward, and I'm just going to go with the officer recommendation. I just think we should make the decision and go home.
Thank you very much. Next person, Councillor Durston.
Yeah, I also am in support of the officer's recommendations that we have a massive shortage of nursery places at the moment in Bristol. If we were to object to this and suddenly the nursery has to reduce the number of children, I'm not quite sure where those parents would find for their children to go, given that the increase in children has happened some time ago. Yeah, I will be supporting your recommendations.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Stone?
I would like to say that I am in support of this application. However, I see this all the time in education because I work in education, and I see that the growth that when we look at these kind of growth parodies, what we often see is that the health and safety slips. And then sooner or later, things start to happen, like people start having accidents, and people are crammed, or the staff to student ratio is not good enough, and I don't know how much they're paying the staff members that are at this nursery.
Councillor Stone, these aren't planning matters with greatest
No, I know they're not planning matters, I understand, but these are my concerns. These are my concerns, and they come to a council, and I think they have to be highlighted in the fact that I have just said I am not going to object to this application, but I am just I'm making people aware that this happens far too often, and we forget some of the health and safety issues upon, especially in education. And I just want to make sure that's on the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Poultney?
Thanks, Chair. I both share Councillor Stone's concerns and the frustration that the planning regime is what it is as restrictive as it is. I would have to say, though, before we move on, I would really like to thank the officer in this particular case. I think this is a really challenging application. This is a really, really good report, and there was a huge amount of information in here that I think was very helpful in coming to a determination here. It's really, really good to, when you have these few questions, to know that it's because the information was there already. So thank you very much for that. I find myself in supportive, along with Councillors Breckles and Durston and Stone on this one, until we see some radical transformation in the way that we provide childcare. It'll continue to be exorbitantly expensive, but it's very hard to weigh the objections in this case against that, such as they are. I am slightly worried, and I always am, when you see this many objections over this long of a period of time, and then none of them show up. I do start to wonder if maybe they'd forgotten it was happening, but what we have in front of us is what we have in front of us, and I think we have to make the decision on that basis. So, on that basis, I think we might well have a unanimous one, but let's see.
Any further comments to our discussion? No. In that case, I will propose the officer recommendation, which is to approve subject to conditions. Councillor Pulteney will second. I will go around everybody and ask whether you wish to vote for or against that motion. Councillor Pulteney?
For.
For. Councillor O'Rourke? For. Councillor Stone?
For.
Councillor McCowie?
For.
Councillor Badruddin?
Yeah, for.
Councillor Gooch?
For.
Councillor Durston?
For.
Councillor Breckles?
For.
And I am for, so that is unanimous, I believe. That concludes our meeting in record time. Thank you very much, everyone. But a particular thank you to our officers, of course, for fine reports and for giving time to us today in what's a busy period for the local planning authority. Thank you very much. Thank you.